Good day to one, good day to all. Welcome back to another edition of our Bible in a Year series. I am your brother and friend, William Holmes. We are reading the Bible. We started on January 1st and we continue our reading. This will be the reading for Saturday, January 15th, 2022, day 15 in our quest of 365 days. Genesis chapter 30, Psalm 15, and 1 Corinthians 13. We're just trying to reference that Bible so that we can get clarity. And we thank God for blessing the readers, the hearers, and doers of His word as we continue to pray that He continues to lead us, guide us, direct us, and instruct us in revelation knowledge as we journey through His word. So we're in the book of Genesis, chapter 30. And the word reads, Now when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, Leah already had 4 kids. If we remember them correctly, that was Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Now when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said to Jacob, Give me children, or else I die. And Jacob's anger was aroused against Rachel. And he said, Am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb? So she said, Here is my maid, Bilhah. Go into her, and she will bear a child on my knees, that I also may have children by her. Then she gave him Bilhah, her maid, as wife, and Jacob went into her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Then Rachel said, God has judged my case, and he has also heard my voice and given me a son. Therefore she called his name Dan. And Rachel's maid Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, With great wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister, and indeed I have prevailed. So she called his name Naphtali. And when Leah saw that she had stopped bearing, she took Zilpah, her maid, and gave her to Jacob his wife. And Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Then Leah said, A troop comes. So she called his name Gad. And Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. And Leah said, I am happy, for the daughters will call me blessed. So she called his name Asher. 1 second, please. So Rachel's maid Bilhah had 2 kids from Jacob, and that was Dan and Naphtali. And then Zilpah, Leah's maid, had 2 kids, so that's Gad and Asher. Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. So that's 8 kids thus far. Verse 14, Now Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, Please give me some of your son's mandrakes. But she said to her, Is it a small matter that you have taken away my husband? Wow. Would you take away my son's mandrakes also? And Rachel said, Therefore he will lie with you tonight for your son's What? He will lie with you tonight for your son's mandrakes. When Jacob came out of the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, You must come in to me, for I have surely hired you with my son's mandrakes. And he lay with her that night. Wow. So apparently Jacob wasn't really sleeping with Leah anymore once he had Rachel. And so Rachel gave him up. Wow. Verse 17. And God listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. And that fifth son, of course, is with Leah. Leah said, God has given me my wages, because I have given my maid to my husband. So she called his name Issachar. Then Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. And Leah said, God has endowed me with a good endowment. Now my husband will dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. So she called his name Zebulun. Afterward she bore a daughter, and called her name Dinah, which she is not one of the 12 tribes. So now we have 10 sons total. We know the last 2 are, I think, Manasseh and Joseph. No, Joseph and Benjamin, I'm sorry, which comes from Rachel. Verse 22, then God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her and opened her womb. And she conceived and bore a son and said, God has taken away my reproach. So she called his name Joseph and said, the Lord shall add to me another son. Jacob's agreement with Laban. And it came to pass, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said to Laban, send me away, that I may go to my own place and to my own country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served you, and let me go, for you know my service which I have done for you. And Laban said to him, please stay, if I have found favor in your eyes, for I have learned by experience that the Lord has blessed me for your sake. Then he said, name me your wages, and I will give it. So Jacob said to him, you know how I have served you and how your livestock has been with me. For what you had before I came was little, and it has increased to a great amount. The Lord has blessed you since my coming. And now, when shall I also provide for my own house? So he said, what shall I give you? And Jacob said, you shall not give me anything. If you will do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep your flocks. Let me pass through all your flock today, removing from there all the speckled and spotted sheep, and all the brown ones among the lambs, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and these shall be my wages. So my righteousness will answer for me in time to come. When the subject of my wages comes before you, everyone that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and brown among the lambs will be considered stolen if it is with me. There's something in all of that about the spotted, speckled, and the brown. There's something in that. Verse 34, and Laban said, oh, that it were according to your word. So he removed that day the male goats that were speckled and spotted, or the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had some white in it, and all the brown ones among the lambs, and gave them into the hand of his sons. Then he put 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. Now Jacob took for himself rods of green poplar. One second, please. We're in verse 37 of chapter 30. Verse 37, chapter 30. Now Jacob took for himself rods of green poplar and of the almond and chestnut trees, peeled white strips in them, and exposed the white which was in the rods. And the rods which he had peeled he set before the flocks in the gutters, in the watering troughs, where the flocks came to drink, so that they should conceive when they came to drink. So the flocks conceived before the rods, and the flocks brought forth streaked, speckled, and spotted. Then Jacob separated the lambs and made the flocks face toward the street, and all the brown in the flock of Laban. But he put his own flocks by themselves and did not put them with Laban's flock. And it came to pass, verse 41, whenever the stronger livestock conceived, that Jacob placed the rods before the eyes of the livestock in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. But when the flocks were feeble, he did not put them in. So the feebler were Laban's and the stronger Jacob's. Thus the man became exceedingly prosperous and had large flocks, female and male servants, and camels and donkeys. So that was Saturday, Genesis chapter 30. And now we go to Psalm 15 for the cross reference. Psalm 15 here in the New King James Version speaks of the character of those who may dwell with the Lord. Verse 1 here in Psalm 15, and the word reads, Lord, who may abide in your tabernacle? Who may dwell in your holy hill? He who walks uprightly and works righteousness and speaks the truth in his heart. He who does not backbite with his tongue, nor does evil to his neighbor, nor does he take up a reproach against his friend, in whose eyes a vile person is despised. But he honors those who fear the Lord. He who swears to his own hurt and does not change. He who does not put out his money at usury, nor does he take a bribe against the innocent. He who does these things shall never be moved. That was Psalm 15. And now we go to 1 Corinthians 13, and that will be our conclusion for our reading for today. Chapter 13 in 1 Corinthians, of course, this continues about the gifts that were given and the body being one, and we're all many members, and that the gifts, and then he ended it with saying, but earnestly desire the best gifts, and yet I show you a more excellent way. So we're going into chapter 13, and it speaks of the greatest gift. He says, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I have become sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, but have not love, it profits me nothing. There it is right there. Love suffers long and is kind, does not envy. Love does not parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Verse 8, love never fails, but whether there are prophecies, they will fail. Whether there are tongues, they will cease. Whether there is knowledge, it will vanish away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect has come, then that which is in part will be done away. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see in a mirror, dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know just as I also am known. In verse 13, here in chapter 13, and now abide faith, hope. And now abide faith, hope, love. These three, But the greatest of these is love. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. When we want to know what he says, but earnestly desire the best gifts, and yet I show you a more excellent way. The greatest of these is love. God bless you. Heaven smile upon you. We have just read Genesis chapter 30, Psalm 15, and 1 Corinthians 13. Thanking God for his word, knowing that all scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for correction, for reproof, instructions in righteousness, so that we will be well equipped for every good work. For we know that man shall not live by bread alone, but man shall live by every word that proceed out of the mouth of God. God bless you. Heaven smile upon you. Amen.